Keep a seat where the light won't reach. Whisper low so it sounds like peace. Lay your head, let the ceiling spin. You don't have to begin again. I've been here where the air goes thin. Saw what happens when you try to win. Better stay where the walls don't move. Nothing left that you have to prove. I pull you close till you forget what you wanted most. It's just the way of the world. Down in the dirt where the flowers bloom. It's just the way of the world. You'll feel the power of an empty room. It's just the way of the world. Just wait a moment and we'll start again. You are the current slow.
Check.
I can show you what I know. Every spark only burns you out. Every dream just a longer drought. I don't lie, I just dim the flame. Give your hunger another name. Call it calm, call it letting go. Call it all that you'll never know. If you don't raise, you don't fall apart. That's the safest way to break a heart. It's just the way of the world. Down in the dirt where the flowers bloom. It's just the way of the world. You'll feel the power of an empty room. It's just the way of the world. Just wait a moment and we'll start again. You are the enemy of my friend, my friend, my friend, my Stay down, stay near. I need you right here. Stay down, stay small. I'm nothing. It's just the way of the world. That's what I say when you start to move. It's just the way of the world. I need you with something to lose. It's just the way of the world. Don't take a step that I can't defend. You are the enemy of my friend, my friend, my friend, my friend. If you rise in a disappear, if you try, got nothing here. So I call it the way of the world. Just to keep you where I can see.
All right. I'm finally gonna get to it. I'm coming. I'm going live. I'm here. Welcome to the show, everybody. Good morning, good day, good afternoon. Let me know in the chat room. I feel so manipulative when I do this because I know other people do it just because they want the attention. But let me know what time of the day you're watching from. There you go. Yeah, like like that, because it helps. It does help. So I can feel even more awkward. It's one of those moments where you come out and you're like, what's happening in Cleveland? And they're like, actually, I'm from Akron, but I drove in for the show, and I actually came further than the people who showed up at your show. So I feel like I should get more credit as like, you should say hello, Akron, because it should be expected that the Cleveland people would be here. I'm not saying that people from Akron are a little pushy. I'm just saying it's a natural reaction that people have. What's up, Midwesterners? Furners? There's some furners out there. I see some people using 24-hour clocks. I hope you're not watching me from a missile silo. Actually, I take that back. I hope you are. So I'm waiting on our dear friend. Oh, Phil's come. Okay, Phil's going to be second hour. Cliff is going to be on at the half hour. Gotcha. All right. This is so many details all flying at once. And I have, hold on. I was working on, I got so carried away, as I often do, that I made, let's see, will this just open normally? I think so. Yeah, there we go. There's a lot going on today, obviously. But one of the biggest ones, of course, is, and I'm going to have to make a new window for this. I think this is going to require me doing some homework on the air. To show this, just to see if it works. Let's see. That Todd Blanche is being grilled today. Look, there you go. You can see his name. It's hard to tell who he is. I'm going for a real Mad Magazine aesthetic. I hope that works for you guys. It does for me. So, Todd Blanche is getting Epstein slapped left and right in these hearings, and obviously it's a particularly difficult one for Republicans, and largely because they are having to defend him. And normally they can, they've got some way that they can find to defend Trump's choices. And how dare the Democrats attack a patriot? How dare they attack someone that cares more about this country than the filthy commie Tooey out of New York? How dare they? And they go at, and in Pam Bondi's case, they're going after a woman who arguably could have torn up the non-prosecution agreement against the Epstein co-conspirators, but let's leave that for another time. Let's put that aside. Now's not a time to judge. She's not a former AG who got $25,000 from Donald Trump for her re-election campaign or election campaign just because he got her word, probably in a private meeting, probably, that she wouldn't dig into the Epstein stuff any further, and she would block that stuff, and he would, help get her more rich friends around that would pay for it. No. Right now, she's just a woman trying to get confirmed. That's easier to pull off than Todd Blanche, who is not only a man, I use that in the loosest possible terms, obviously, but he's kind of a dick. Like, Trump likes him because he'll protect him, and he's paid to protect him, and because of attorney-client privilege from his private practice and the fact that he was White House counsel too, Trump just figures this asshole can't say anything. He can't release anything. Substack and no Instagram's up. I see it's up. But if you're on Instagram, let me know. Say hi. You won't be in this kind of side chat. You'll be in your own little pocket of the universe. But it's working. So I get staff chat moments where CSL and Dre are like, why is this thing not working? I'm like, I feel you. So, Todd Blanche is not a likable dude at all. And I mean, he's got, criminal defense attorney for a line of pedophiles kind of energy all the time. So it's a rough one. I gotta say, it's tough for Republicans to defend. Now they'll find a way because they'll lay this on like past AGs and weaponization and all this kind of stuff, when it really should be about the difference between the last pick Trump made and this Trump pick, right? He ditched the bitch and brought you in. So why? Why are you an improvement over what she did? That should be the primary part of this. Like, how will you be more transparent about the Epstein files? I'm kidding. That's not expected at all. But it's a good question, and it's a squirm fest over there right now, which I have no doubt we will talk about with Cliff. I'll see if we can. Yeah, I feel like we should. Yeah, let me move this guy down out of my way. I'm gonna get my graphics act together very soon. That I just had a brainwave about how to do that. But in terms of like, let's do a needle drop on his hearing right now if it's live, because he's supposed to be in there all day. And if it's not the live part of it, boink. Yeah. See if this is going on right now. This is the live stream. Go away, chat room, you weirdo. Not you guys.
Judges should be impeached based on their rulings
Okay, this is Hirono is asking him questions right now at this very second.
against this administration and the president. Yes or no?
No. No, I don't believe that.
Hold on, let's pick this up.
Administration, correct?
Hold on, I wanna.
We know that federal judges are a problem for you, certainly a problem for President Trump, because they actually care about facts and evidence. And that's why last fall at a Federalist Society event, you called for young lawyers at that event to join you in fighting a war. And you said, we need you because it's a war and it's something we will not win unless we keep on fighting. The war that you were talking about was against federal judges who were ruling against the administration, correct?
No.
Well, then do you believe that judges should be impeached based on their rulings against this administration and the president? Yes or no?
No. No, I don't believe that.
On that, you disagree with the president because you believe judges should be impeached for disagreeing with them. President Trump sees...
Also, by the way, he's not going to say any of this shit in this. That's a lie. He's just making him lie. And again, because he's a lawyer, it should be. I mean, I understand when they're looking at other cabinet officials, and you may not be in lawyer head, but it would be a good idea when you're prepping for an asshole like this to prep with lawyer brain. The idea that don't ask a question unless you already know the answer, and if he answers contrary to that, you know it's a lie. And here's 3 examples. And that in his case, that would not be particularly difficult.
DOJ not only is a tool to attack his enemies, but also useful for helping his friends. To that end, on May 18th, you signed an Attorney General order establishing funding and setting out requirements for the so-called Anti-Weaponization Fund. Correct? You signed
Yes,
such an
I
order?
did sign that document, yes.
Have you rescinded that order?
Yes, the order is no longer in effect. There is no
Oh, that-
weaponization fund.
Mr.
Correct.
Bannon, that is not my question. My question is, did you rescind that order?
Yes, I'm doing it under oath right now.
No, the
it
fact
does not exist.
No,
Okay. Dinosaurs are no longer alive and amongst us. I have suddenly rescinded the existence of dinosaurs. There are no living dinosaurs because I spoke them away. That's, again, a lawyer would know the difference in this language. This guy's not even good at bullshitting. He's just been given a pass because of who he works for and people's fear of the guy that he works for.
Can you answer that there's...
Rescinding it would mean I don't need the court to tell me it's wrong. I signed it. They have an issue with it. We reviewed it. It doesn't work. I am rescinding this order. I'm signing a thing rescinding this order. The court struck it down.
That is not rescinding the order because you can resurrect that order at any time. So actually, your answer is no, you have not rescinded that order. Mr. Blanchard,
It's a lie. Just say it's a lie.
one of you...
Just say it's, if you want to be softer, it is the Senate after all. Say it, that's untrue. just say that's untrue and make it and then make him squirm or defend it.
First acts as a Deputy Attorney General was to issue a memo eviscerating DOJ's enforcement work against crypto criminals. Crypto crime surged in 2025. Mr. Blanche, are you aware?
Wait a second. Hold on. Crypto crime surging in 2025. What? Sorry, one second. We had a story about that just recently. I think the biggest crime is the sort of base level dipshittery that Trump and his fam put in charge of that stuff. I'll give you an example. This is particularly fun. You want to see the Trump family's financial acumen in action, ladies and gentlemen? Are you going? Could fast racehorses create fast racehorses, and people with shit experience betting on extreme things breed people who are just as bad? Well, I'll show you. This is Eric Trump. Eric Trump said, "Just hold on," while Bitcoin erased $600 million from his fortune. Now, why would he tell investors and other people to just hold on? One is to staunch the bleeding so that he could get out at a higher price, because everybody else was leaving the party. He's like, guys, wait, the strippers haven't even arrived, right? That's essentially his argument. And hold on. I made it like, I have to make these graphics a little, so I have to, I need a little file that inserts them. This will shape it up a little better. This will give you a better example of what we're dealing with here. There you go. Eric, sorry, Eric lost $600 million of presumably his dad's friend's money in crypto over the last year, and it ain't coming back. Like, there is no rebound for crypto. It's horseshit. This crypto is the .com bubble of the internet. The internet hummed right along through the .com bubble. That everybody associates a lot of times in the same way that they think there's going to be an AI bubble versus the big frontier model companies collapsing or something like that. It's not the same thing. If you create an infrastructure of something, there's always going to be people who are like, oh shit, on top of this infrastructure, we can build as a foundation of that, we can build something amazing, and we're going to make so much money because people don't even know. And that's what .com was. That's where people were buying pets.com and other stuff like that, with the idea that they could squat on URLs and sell them for a lot of money later. So that was the .com bubble. It didn't affect the internet at all. The internet is an integral part of our everyday life. I'm on it right now, and it feels good. And it's everywhere else. It's used for every payment you make digitally. It's for all kinds of stuff. Like people keep track of inventory across their stores, across state lines, and all. Like, it's thorough. It is absolutely the is it the interstitium, the new organ they found in the human body that's just below the skin that holds a bunch of the water that keeps you alive, and that they never knew was there because as soon as you die, all the water disappears, so they didn't notice it was there. But it was always there, and without it, you croak. It's the interstitium it's the circulatory system, technically, of our modern economy and our interactions, right? The .com bubble didn't kill that, but there were a ton of dipshits who thought that's where they were going to make the most money, which was make nothing, build nothing, create nothing of value, but create just be a tick on the internet. Just suck blood out of it because you know where that blood is going to flow eventually, is the idea. We build a house on top of other people's business without ever doing anything of value in the process. That's what the .com issue was. The same thing is true of crypto and blockchain. Blockchain is incredibly useful. It is a 3-point verification system using encrypted different encryption on different computers that have to agree for something that is owned by someone to be passed to somebody else. So it makes, like people's home titles theft and all that kind of stuff is effectively, like Home Title Lock and all those guys. What they do is they put your deed on the blockchain. And for somebody to steal your home, they have to get 3 agreements that this was happening instead of just somebody signing a document and walking into your bank and walking out with, the legal ability to change the locks on your house, right? So blockchain itself is the substructure. It's the interstitium. It's the circulatory system of, that crypto is built on top of. And crypto has the only area it's used, and I will hammer this until people recognize it. The only area it's used as an actual currency instead of just a way to hide stock money or play like the greater fool theory and day trade on dipshittery. Like, hey, it's going up, I'll buy some. It's going down, get out. Like, that's where they make the money. Nothing actually happens. Is that what it's used for is trading in guns, drugs, human beings, slavery, and CSAM. Child sexual assault material. That's what anybody who actually buys or sells anything in crypto, that's what they're doing with it. That's what it's for. Maybe, and the occasional, although it's, I'm sure, more of a niche market, murder for hire. That's the other thing, I guess, that you could pay crypto for. I'm sure it's got, sidelines around other stuff, but by and large, that's what it's for. It's for gun runners and drug runners and other people to hide their transactions. And so if you're trying to build your empire on top of that, you're going to run into problems because there is a group of people, generally the general public, but also law enforcement, that is looking to quell all of those areas as best they can. And one of the ways that they're doing it is finding a way to make sure that they can, retrieve back crypto that's taken through illicit, sources, taken from illicit sources and used for illicit, gains. And so they're in taking that money back, they're going to have to find a way to get around the encryption, right? And there was a thought for a while when Bitcoin was really flying that they couldn't, that it was FBI proof. And it wasn't. We found it was a lot easier to crack people's wallets. Thank you, CSL. It was a lot easier for the FBI and other, Interpol and stuff to crack people's wallets and get in there and get their money than they thought. And it started to drag. It started to go down. And then something really terrible happened. Not only could you not hide your money there and only you had the magic key in your head, a couple of people had died and had memorized their little, 12-word code to get their crypto out, and nobody else had it. They hadn't written it down anywhere. And so the once you could break that code and get into it everywhere, something else horrible on top of all that happened. And that was the Trumps got involved. Last August, a year ago, August, Don and Eric went all in on this idea like, my dad, my father, my dad is the crypto king. He's going to be the crypto president. And so they dove into this shit. And without actually looking at the fact that it has no intrinsic value. It just doesn't. Which, by the way, neither does, Trump Media and Technology Group. If you don't believe me, check the stock. It was $90. It's now $8. And why is it $8? Because they got into crypto. One of the reasons TMTG sank like a fucking stone is because they didn't just, that's the second T in TMTG is technology. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, the technology they're talking about is crypto, which is not a technology. It's an affect of a technology. It's blockchain is the actual technology. That's the technology, which they seem to know nothing about. It's just a cash grab. Now, let's be clear. As much as I am mocking Eric Trump's losses, they pale in comparison to the losses of people that bought Trump coin. his little Trump, it looks like S Trump, Strump, and that's because they put a dollar sign before the thing, and that's the meme coin. Those folks, while Trump made allegedly $1.6 billion in crypto earnings, that was on the backs of all the people who lost. And I didn't buy any Trump crypto, and you didn't buy any. There might be some maggots in the chat that bought some. How's it doing? How'd it go? Did it rocket to the moon? Did it doge its way to outer space? No. It ate shit and pretended to enjoy the sandwich. And there is no out. Well, okay. There's one thing that will keep it marginally afloat for a time. But that, if you want to hedge your bet, if you're looking to short TMTG for whatever fucking is left of it in late 2028, it's going to be the defense stocks that this dude is working with, because all of those contracts are going to be canceled by the next president, even if that president is a Republican. You know why? Because they're not actually creating anything of worth, and they're going to get some of our soldiers killed. That's why. And Republicans know this. They're just looking the other way because they got bigger fish to fry. We're back in Iran, and like we ever fucking left. And so Eric is a dipshit and doesn't know what he's doing, and I'm all for it because, again, the only money he is burning through is his dad's friends, who are the investors, and maggots and incels who bought this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. So let's give it up for Eric, I guess. Whoops, hold on. Oh, I popped. Why did I pop over to Twitch? That was funny. I don't want to do that. I want to do. Oops. All right, hold on. There you go. Back to here. I want to get. This is for Eric. We've got to at least. There you go. Good job, Eric. That's what you got. Okay. So, $600 million in losses. Also, could somebody, any maggot in the chat room, any maggot that watches this clip later, any maggot that, slides by the show on their way to try and suck up to, I don't know, some Trump adjacent dipshit, go look at the price versus earnings on Trump Media and Technology Group. Just go slide it. Don't take my word for it. Please go check out TMTG. And while you're there, please, for the love of God, take your nest egg and invest it in TMTG the way you have emotionally and politically invested in Donald Trump. If you really have this trust in him, that he is the greatest president in the history of presidents, that he should be on fucking Mount Rushmore, that we should name every art center and build him an Arc de Triomphe leading into Arlington, a place he will never be buried because he did not serve, because he got 5 deferments for his fake bone spurs. If you really believe that, put your money where your mouth is, asshole. Invest your nest egg in TMTG. If he's that great, there's no way that stock isn't a winner. It's the next Tesla. Come on now. Now I know you're thinking, Hal, Tesla isn't the next Tesla. Sure. But maggots, by and large, don't know that. Oh, sorry. Should I use smaller words? You're right. Anyways, point being is, if you believe Trump is the greatest ever, then why don't you believe his stock is the greatest ever? Why aren't you invested? You're getting it at a deal. It's going to skyrocket. Oh my God. $8 for, hold on, I'll have to look it up. One second. I should have a constant ticker for TMTG. By the way, also, while you're at it, check oil prices. Oops. This is, let's go. DJT TMTG stock price. Let's get it hot off the presses, shall we? Come on. Oh, it's $9. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. It's 10% of where it was. Yeah, not here. Okay, let's see. Year to date. Okay, there we go. It's doing great. It's down 31% year over year. Down $4 from last year, where it was, oh God. Yeah, looking good. Looking real good. Now I know what you're thinking. But there's so much it does. It's an integral part of America. This is and those who bought into it, hold on. Let's go to 5 years. Where was the big spike? Max. Where's the big? Yeah, there we go. There we go. This is the regular DJT. It went from 60. This is its spike when it first entered to $9.03. There's also a DJT. Yeah. So this is on that's the NASDAQ one. Hold on. Okay. So there's also one DJT on the okay, this is the so he's got a second one that's doing just as well. This one only got as high as the height $27, and it's at $3.48. I mean, come on, maggots, you got what I need. You've got enough money sitting around. You could, that's about the price of that's $1 more than the price of gas at a Patriot gas station. For 1 penny more, you could fill up your tank with a future investment in your favorite president, him. Sorry. Something I told Cliff just to come on in. He will be on in a few. Okay, great. Yeah, this is, this is where, they do the poly market stuff, and you have Enton going, oh my gosh, golly, there's these blah, right? Oh, here we go. There's our dear friend Cliff is waiting in the wings. You know how the Enton does all this magash and magali about the, hold on, I need to put him in here. Where's my guest? There it is. Okay, I put it in here. And I got to change this little name here. And dink, dink, get in here. Oh, we'll do it. All right. I'm just going to have to close that for a second and then change the name in a different way. All right. And I'll bring in our guest and put him in guest one. That should be, there he goes. He's in the box, and then I'll bring him in, ladies and gentlemen, if I may. Joining us right now, the amazing, talented, and wonderful Cliff Schechter. Let's see. Publish. That's what it does. There he is.
Now you're making me blush, man. You're making me blush. I'm sorry, I'm a few minutes late.
That's okay. There's so much going on. I will never run out of shit to ramble about. But I got caught up in this whole thing about Eric Trump, losing $600 million on crypto, and Bitcoin, interestingly enough, taking a giant raging shit right after he got in the business.
Which I have, again, call me whatever.
Shocker.
I have not
Shocker.
believed. I have believed all of this to be a scam from the beginning. I don't trust any of it. I don't trust anything that doesn't have anything backing it and provide something with inherent value. Somebody just it all just
so
suddenly
cynical.
Decide Bitcoin is worth -2 cents, and that's I've never
And
understood.
it would be
That's
at
my
that
point.
moment.
I've never understood what I mean. I know that there's both euphoria, almost like you're on euphoria, and there's panics in the stock market where people act crazy, and it's not based on the actual value of a company, but at least you do have a company sitting there with some value in it,
Right.
with which the stock price is for, even if it doesn't accurately reflect it. Whereas Bitcoin,
Right.
I don't know what that thing is that provides it with any value besides just being a pile of fucking coins I find in the street, that are in coin form but are not worth a damn thing to anybody.
Well, I'll tell you what they're counting on the inherent use function. And I've mentioned this before. It is strictly for buying guns, drugs, child sexual assault,
it's money
material, and human
laundering.
beings.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so in different periods, at like when Russia starts its war and some of the oligarchs are trying to get their shit out of the country, or China is clamping down on their millionaires and they're trying to find a way to get their money out of the country. It has these spikes, and you can track them to moments like that. You can see Bitcoin start to go up because of its functional use, that people are actually starting to move around large chunks of money. But the purpose of them doing this is to get out as fast as they can in Swiss francs, especially US dollars, or some rando currency that they have a deal with the leader of that country to shave off 10% like a fucking diamond fence.
Ask it, maybe, this is just a theory of mine, Hal. Maybe the other section of the tax form that Al Sayed released today, that of course said nothing about his taxes because he had an other part of it that where he did not break down how much money he made from anywhere. But after lots of pressure in that Democratic primary in Michigan, and yes, I think he's a fraud and I am in favor of his opponent. I don't know, maybe that's in Bitcoin for all we know. You know? I mean, his physician's license seems to be in Bitcoin, and not being a real doctor and walking around and pretending, that's a good sign. His view on he's accepted 200 grand from his father, who's put money into charity tied to Hamas. So maybe maybe that's Bitcoin. I don't know. I'd love to ask the guy if he would answer any questions, but he never does. So
yeah, I think they're hoping to run out the clock, because they're, the problem is you have a lot of, I think, carpetbaggers always do well, whether they are, outside party indie people who are just trying to take advantage.
Of year too.
That's what I'm saying, is that when there's a tailwind on a party, people will jump on, and arguably post Obama, with two terms of a Democrat, the tailwind was towards the Republican anyways, because people do this kind of like disgruntled, we've never heard here comes the new boss, same as the old boss, and so they were just like, oh, let's try on another hat. The indie voter in the middle might lean one party or the other just for the sake of it. That's what the midterms are a microcosm of.
But this is the comeback of the alternative. Character doesn't matter, vetting doesn't matter. Bernie left, the Young Turks left, the sort of who cares? That's cool.
It's very exciting. Thank you. Yay. They could. Really, Plattner's a rapist? We would have known that if we hadn't, and this is fact, only done 6 hours of oppo on him, which is like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Right.
And then you've got Ro Khanna like, well, I get it. He twisted a woman's arm behind her back to the point where she had marks up and down her arm, but it doesn't seem that bad. I think we can still support it. Like I've had it with that group.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like, again, TYT right now has, their primary job is to depress the Democratic vote turnout.
And that's the main thing. Their primary job seems to be they nominate this person, I don't even know what to refer to her as, Chevalier in New York, who
if a nightingale could sing like you.
Ukraine.
Sorry.
It's okay. We should pull out of Ukraine. That's a great idea. We forced Russia into that war, according to her.
Right.
She's trying to erase those tweets now. She the day that Brad Lander, who also won a primary, quit DSA, and so did 40 original founding members, because on October 8th, they celebrated October 7th. She was out there celebrating. She's called white women ugly colonizers, referred to black men as having some weird fetish with white women, which is like birth of a nation shit. You'd think it would be coming from the far right. She's against interracial marriage, which we'd think would come from David Duke. Like these are the insane people. So
or Clarence / Jenny Thomas.
Right. Like it's like I can't. So they're on my mind a lot, and you brought that up. I'm sorry. I took a shot at El Sayed because if he wins that primary, you just know, like Plattner, there's so much more there when he had to be forced to release his taxes and won't even release them honestly. Like has an other section and is hiding things still and lied about being a doctor and all these things. And we're gonna lose a seat there if this guy wins. Thankfully, Haley Stevens is up 48-41 because all these scandals have been hitting him. And that's why he just released his taxes, probably try to head some of it off, but didn't release his taxes.
Right. Well, okay,
I know you're talking Bitcoin, and I've gotten way off.
No, not at all. I'm very cool with that because I do. This is one of the running issues that I have is that if you're if the ideas are so popular, and there is reason to believe that they are, around universal health care, raising the minimum wage and all those kind of things, if they are that popular, then you should have an easier time finding candidates that aren't ultimately despicable and have to hide who they are. And it reeks of Trumpism that these folks don't trust their own message that much enough.
Yes.
Like, we can't scratch too deep on these folks or it's going to be fucking awful. Well,
you know what else it reeks of Trumpism is that as long as you agree, as long as you're anti-war and anti-capitalism, then you're on their side, and all other sins are forgiven. Like, you can be a virulent anti-Semite, you can be a horrific misogynist, you can be like the congressional candidate they're supporting right now in Michigan, who came out and said that the black imperialist structure is blocking poor white leftists like him from moving up. It's a tough life for a rich white leftist. And like, because it's almost like it's a feature, not a bug, right? Like, they don't care about character. They don't care about the thing. When you say all their economic policies sound good, that's the thing I always said in 2016 with this whole thing with Bernie versus Hillary. I actually agree with more of Bernie's economic policies. The problem is you have to be realistic and get them passed somehow. And the problem is, if you really do align yourself with anybody, you know who you end up with? You end up with Tulsi Gabbard. You end up with John Fetterman. These are the people that Bernie, and like, why do you think that wouldn't happen again?
Right. And the key is, again, we run into this all the time, but we have an example already in existence of the MAGA uprising against Trump, of how this plays out. If you have your own version of the purity test and you bullshit them into going, I'm with you guys, I'm with the guys with the purity test, that you can have these kind of odd standards, like release all the Jan 6ers, they did nothing wrong. But COVID was a hoax, but also Trump was a hero for getting the evil vax that was there to kill us released. Like, that nonsense. Like, you promise everything to everybody and use their jargon, and they're like, okay, I'm on board. The minute you do anything or you're confronted by reality, even if you meant well, you're fucked. But if you obviously have to pull off the mask, you're like, oh, I was just bullshitting about that because that's just impossible. But it was the only way to get you. You guys won't vote for reality. You'll only vote for a utopian fantasy that, borders on a violent overthrow of the people you don't like. And that chunk
and they
of
lead
vote
with anger. It's like, it reminds me of the old argument. I don't know if you ever read anything by Richard Hofstadter, The Paranoid Style in American Politics, which mostly has defined the right in recent years, the MAGA right. It's the same thing here. The people with the pitchforks, the angry, 1890s populists, like the William Jennings Bryan types, who with you on economics, but then are arguing against evolution. That's who they are. Whereas as opposed to the progressives of the early 20th century, your sort of Roosevelts and others who believed in science and rationality, and we should bring people together for the right reasons and give them health care and do these kinds of things. And so that's the problem. It's the character and the nature of the people that they attract. And when you make it clear that you don't, it's kind of like Donald Trump, right? When you make it clear you don't vet and you don't care about character, guess who shows up at the party?
Right. And again, they will, it's not even that your desire for those things is the bad thing. It's that if you leave the door open to the hen house, the foxes will eventually notice. And this has been, this is a crucial aspect that it seems to blindside certainly the extremes of both sides, because they're under the impression that they will kill those people eventually, like all the guillotine Mangione talk, or the maggots going, there's a two-way solution. It's the same thing. Like, they may get in, but eventually we'll kill them. Well, you didn't. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He's breaking all of his promises right to your face and enriching his entire family in the process. I mean,
he's bankrupted your farm. He's like, he doesn't give a shit about you. He's riding on that, and I don't think, again, it's much worse on the MAGA right. I'm not going to compare the size and number on the DSA left, and they're not even in the Democratic Party. But I do feel like if we're going to not allow, and I always said I wouldn't allow to happen to our party, what we watched them do, these people need to be stopped now before then character is just no longer an issue at all. And they're, you've got them making arguments. Well, yeah, Plattner may have raped somebody, but he's great on childcare.
I got to tell you,
that's where we are.
most of it. The problem I have with it is that it seems to be another single issue voter thing about Israel. That if your rhetoric about Israel isn't equally as genocidal as they see Netanyahu acting, meaning that you literally have to be for its eradication too, then you're not far enough in. Instead of going, there needs to be a balance, and we need to be adults in a real world, and that's just not sexy enough. Again, it's why the Republicans call it the deep state and not bureaucrats, because it doesn't sound sexy. It's just the reality everybody has to deal with. And like Trump and all this shit, we had a regulation that protected us from the parasite that causes explosive diarrhea. We had a system in place that checked for this stuff. And the reason we did is because we didn't have one before, and it affected everything. It affects.
David Schuster just wrote, not to self-promote, but David Schuster at blueamp.co, our Substack, just wrote a really good piece on this because he's been kind of on this beat. He wrote something about the exact same, not the exact same thing, but very similar thing. I think it was about a month ago on the hookworm situation, where it was like we had regulations in place, but RFK Jr., other people are smarter than the rest of us, and they're like, nah, we don't need to stop that. And so it came cross-border from Mexico, and cattle started getting infected, and these cattle ranchers are losing all their cattle to this and going bankrupt. And even Texas Republicans were like yelling at Trump and saying, you can't do this, but he did it. Because again, they don't believe in science. It's just anger and just greed and just sloth, and it's your 7 deadly sins is what it probably is.
This is okay. The one thing they do have in common, and this is the anti-science aspect of it, that you also see where the crust thinking it's the pizza these days, is that the extremes tend to have this belief that if we just shook the Etch-a-Sketch and started from scratch, what we would build would be so much better and quickly. We would do it quickly. If we just, it's the ad absurdum version of vote the bums out. Like if we just cleared house there and just voted everybody else out, we just held elections.
What works quickly?
No,
actually, let me let you finish. I apologize.
Well, I was the idea is that they somehow have this fantasy that the voters themselves would choose people that were drastically different from the people that are in there in a better way, which is not at all the case, especially if you did it quickly, especially when you're worried about, especially if you're worried about money in politics, because let's just say we had a special election for everybody in office, which is this kind of vote the bums out idea. You hear this in the crust all the time, that we should just start from scratch. If you did that, who would have the most ability to get elected and have the backing to get all their ads on television and get their flyers and yard signs?
Hobbesian universe of where the worst who have the most money would end up winning.
Poor candidates would be right out. Any middle class candidate would be right out. The only people that would get in there would be rich candidates like everybody in the Senate, or candidates that are backed by rich people. That's what would happen. And this bizarre idea, you see this on the maggot side all the time. It's this machismo, alpha male horseshit that they always align themselves as, like monster truck idiocy.
So manosphere and so sexy.
Right. That they were like, it would be better if we went back to the Old West. When people died of dysentery. I mean, we're basically there. That's what they're shooting for.
Those are great times. And you're right. They're trying to take us back to there with what they're doing with public health and everything else. But I mean, you just we're
all on the Oregon Trail now.
In a movie. Right. At what point do they stop living in a movie? Like I enjoyed 1883 too. It was a good watch. It's not the life I want to live.
No.
And so it's just, the stupidity is mind boggling, but you're exactly right. Because they just look at things that look cool in movies and assume that's the way it really goes. You
also can't, the anti-establishment concept is this idea. It's really just the soft way of saying you believe in a cabal. That you believe that everything is run by 8 people in a smoke-filled room, instead of there is no fucking way that Al Gore would have taken us into Iraq. There is no fucking way that Biden wanted to stay in Afghanistan, but the Pentaverate made him get out. But Trump, there's no way Trump would have gotten out in his second term. He's still bitching about us not having Bagram. there is no smoke-filled room. The voters have more power than they recognize, but there is there's a powerful voice out there, if anything, and it's not a single group. It's a mixture of people, including the alt media crowd who make most of their money when they're in the opposition position.
Yes,
you know,
the ones who again, where it's all about money. So as long as they
don't want to succeed, they want to have the villain that they can seem like an underdog against. There's a lot of money in that, and Fox News struggles with that when Trump is in. You can see it.
No, you're entirely right, and
then there's also
who cares and who doesn't about what's actually going on.
And the Paul Weyrich crowd and the Republicans especially want to diminish the vote. Specific,
right.
They want people to think.
Loud. He's been dead for a while, but they took their marching orders from him and others, and those of us who live in states like the one I live in, like Ohio, know that any time you go and vote on election day, you should just assume that even if they don't pull the kind of stuff that Trump is now trying to pull, and we're having to organize to stop him, if they just do the old Secretary of State finds ways to disenfranchise black voters trick, which they do here in Texas and Florida, whatever, they'll chop 1%, maybe 2% off of your total. It's like it just they suppress the vote by that much in these states every time. You should just expect it, and that makes close races really dangerous. So
and that's why that's the other thing is like the idea that anybody has the fucking gall to say on either side of this argument that you can hold your Republican or your Democrats' feet to the fire, or even the independent their feet to the fire to keep their promises in a 51-49 district.
Right.
Especially if the person saying that didn't fucking vote. Like, honestly, if anybody,
a lot of people,
if you sat out or line item left out the president or your senator or your House member because some asshole on the internet told you, no choice is better than making an adult choice, then you literally are responsible for this shit.
You are. Like, I don't want to, just whip out the Andy Shepard speech from the end of The American President here, but like he gives the whole. I thought that. I mean, it is Aaron Sorkin. He can write, that man. And it really was just all about the privilege of living in a democracy. Which only 3% of people in human history have lived anywhere where they've had any ability, not even full ability necessarily, but any ability to vote for anyone. You are lucky if you live in that situation, and if you choose to abuse it by not voting, then you don't. As far as I'm concerned, if you don't vote, you don't deserve to live in a democracy. You should go live in a place where there's no voting, because apparently you don't take your adult responsibility seriously enough. That's my thinking on it.
Yeah, and the idea that that gardening requires the just sort of whimsical bulldozing of your crop every couple of weeks because you don't like the way the wind is blowing or what there's some browning on the leaves. In reality, I mean, honestly, the idea that you can't control a seat outside of your district, so that's going to affect how you vote for the Democrat in your area, which is a big part of this.
Yep.
So much so that Cenk helped a Republican take a Democrat seat in north of Los Angeles by running effectively against the woman running, the Democrat running.
He only won
and
like
handing
1% because he's pathetic, but his whole narrative was constantly attacking her. And that harmed her. That handed that
vote in a narrow margin to the Republicans for the foreseeable future.
And this is what they do. And you're just like, and these purity cycles get and like anybody who knows anything about history, purity cycles. This is what they lead to: is 1 week you're Robespierre saying the other person isn't pure enough, off with their head. Guess what? The next week it's you, and Robespierre isn't pure enough, and it's off with his head, and it keeps going. We've seen it with MAGA, like as they fight with each other.
They're a great example, right? Look at just their little first shot across the bow of the rhino idea, and then how it's metastasized amongst them into this paranoid stuff to where the Charlie Kirk trial is going on right now. The Tyler Robinson trial is going on right now.
Yeah,
like a regular murder trial, with evidence and a defense and the state presenting its case and all this stuff. Yeah, it's nutty. And yet they are still, doing this death by 1,000 cuts amongst themselves infighting because of this kind of purity test mentality, with also just kind of the general disdain for how actual progress is made. I mean, TYT is one of the reasons why the phrase, progressives hate progress, it was birthed. That came from them. Any progress that's made, if we don't get everything, nobody gets anything. And
they're animated by anger, the same shit, which is why they love a lot of these DSA candidates. They're animated by anger and resentment and whatever other issues they've got. And you're right, because what they end up doing, you named one congressional race, but and others like them, their good buddy who they used to have on all the time, Jimmy Dore, swell guy, and people like that end up, leading people to not vote at all or to vote Republican, because they're the type of people that could convince people to do that, because people trusted them because they used to be on the left legitimately. And so, the first show I ever went on was the Young Turks, but we're now talking over 20 years ago. Jake was a very different person back then. And I guess the money wasn't quite as important at that point, and the branding and the we're number one and all the other stupid shit they care about more than actually affecting people's lives. It's not to say that we do this is our living. We need to make money. I ask people to subscribe and get a paid subscription for that reason. But it's really not hard to find a balance, because I've been offered, stuff from big oil before. I've been offered stuff from the adult education scam, online scammers, a few other types of that. And I said, no, it's not that tough to do. And but if all you care about is the bottom line, well, then Buddy Romer's cutting you a big check.
Right. And by the way, I'm the same way. That's why I have a Venmo up there. It's why the show is supported by Patreon and that kind of thing, because that's how I want it to be run. And even if somebody, I had a dude roll in and try to whale his way into controlling the narrative of the show, this Australian guy who was dumping $100 super chats, just trying to get me to repeat his talking point, because you got to read it. It's a super chat. And I was like, not happening. And he kept doing it. And I was like, dude, the money will go through and it will end up in my pocket, but fuck
I'm
you.
Happy to take
That's not how it works.
This, but
audience capture is not happening here. Meanwhile, I just wanted to show you.
I have the same problem with my chat over at Substack, because we have a big subscriber base and it's hard to monitor. So there are people that just come in there and try to spam it and take it over with what they want to say. And we have to start going in there. Just because you paid for my publication, got a paid subscription, doesn't mean that you get to share your version 5 times a day.
Well, you don't get you're not buying the right to somebody else's microphone. Nothing is stopping you from making your own show. Nothing, except the fact. One thing might be stopping them. They aren't actually American. They're actually a foreign front or a bot.
They're not actually, they don't know anything. But I've said to all of them, as long as it's not something that offends my values, you want to put up one thing a day that is unique and never. But the rules are not more than one thing a day, and you don't put up the same piece twice. I'm not having you spam, or you're not saying the same thing twice. And if you start doing that, you're out. So
real quick before we let you go, I want to thank you. Remind everybody, blueamp.co, and go to the Substack and subscribe. And one diatribe a day. You heard him. But I love the fact that after they drained the reflecting pool, one little quick thing before we get to Phil, that the only thing that was showing in the bottom of the trench was the car tracks from when Trump and his motorcade drove through the fucking thing while the paint was drying.
Why did they do that?
Because he wanted to, I don't know, see it. So they just
drove. Child with a toy? I mean,
well, no, and he couldn't get out because they couldn't clear the area. So they're like, "We'll just drive through. It's a giant concrete thing. It's fine, sir." And so I guarantee that's why they fucking did it, because they busy him with picking the color of the drapes so he doesn't touch any of the important levers. It's like handing your kid the iPad so that they stay away from the stove.
Yeah, right. Exactly right. I want to say this because, I'm not a religious person and don't tend to believe in these kinds of things. But I am at a point now where if there is an antichrist, it is Donald Trump. It must be. Everything he touches, as we know, dies. Every person that comes into contact with him. Look at how Lindsey Graham ended up dying. And I mean, I'm not saying he died because of Trump. But what I'm saying is he had this record for however sleazy he was when he was John McCain's sidekick, where he had supported immigration reform and all these other things, and he tossed all of that overboard, probably thinking, someday Trump will be gone, I can go back to being me, and he never got that chance. So that's his legacy now. Trump destroyed and made that his legacy, just the way he destroyed a human in that case, and in the case of the reflecting pool. Everything the dude touches ends up fucking blowing up. Like he's just
again,
he can't do anything.
Part of that was to and we got Phil's waiting in the wings, and I want to bring him in.
I'm sorry,
but that's okay. One of the reasons why the Susan Sarandons of the world were kind of advocating in 2016, voting for Trump, was that very reason, that he'll destroy it, and from the ashes we will create some sort of utopian new thing. Like the idea is that England only has the, universal health care because of World War II. So maybe we need to just Gaza Strip all of the American cities so that we can start from scratch. And it's like, here's a good idea. If you really believe that,
stupid as to
Gaza needs the help, go get a shovel and help them build that thing. And then if it works, I can't imagine everybody else not wanting to duplicate it.
Or wasn't she get her elite self up into, the hollers of Eastern Kentucky where people don't always have running water, and maybe help them out too? People she destroyed with that's, by helping ease the consciences of those who decided to not vote in that election. Like, oh, yes, it's very easy if you're a multi-gazillionaire. And then you see her later. What was it? She was endorsing some product that, of course, was on TV. It was a company, I don't know if it was Maybelline or whoever the hell it was, who gave money to Trump and Republicans. So you're not pure enough for Susan Sarandon. You need to rid yourself of every corporation except for Susan Sarandon, who's already a multimillionaire, can take extra money to do ads.
From a Trump donor. Right.
Unbelievable.
Cliff, thank you for being with me today. I greatly appreciate it, my friend.
Yep.
We'll have you on again very, very soon. People check out blueamp.co.
Get here on time and maybe try to do a full hour just today, this week's.
That'd be lovely. I hear you.
It was great seeing you were here, my friend. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And that'll happen again. I have to do a big, Kentucky trip, a couple of them over the next little bit. So I will definitely swing by and annoy you while I'm in town. So thanks so much, brother.
Everything you said there is true, but the annoying part. But yes, come here and swing by.
Awesome.
Take care,
Thank you, brother. All right, there he goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Schechter. And give me 1 second. I'll bring in our dear friend Philip Ittner as I prep the background. Because you'd think by now I'd have like a dual guest thing set up, and I just don't. This will be really easy. This should be easier than last time, at least. And Phil is coming in live from Ukraine. Who, curiously enough, the Lindsey Graham debacle around leading up to his death or what have you is curious benefit to some of the anti-Ukraine folks, and yet at the same time, some people are stepping up to help them out. So in lieu of that, so we'll get to that in just 1 second. Let me fix the titles, and then we'll bring them in. And let's see. Take this guy and we'll put it, there we go. And go in here and give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, if I may, bring in on our dear friend Philip Ittner, live from Kyiv in Ukraine. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, all right. Yourself?
I'm all right. Lots of moving parts around here, obviously. And there's plenty of news to cover just on the Ukrainian side. And how is the whole death of Lindsey Graham thing? Was that a bit of news since he had just come back from there? He was an advocate for more support, and he was one of the biggest Russia hawks. So that's why there was a lot of talk about maybe they offed him over here.
Yeah, not a lot of traction on that kind of conspiracy theory. I mean, not to say that there aren't Russian operatives in Ukraine who could have slipped him something. They do like their poison. But I think had they done it, had it actually been the Russians, which I don't think it was actually at all, they'd let us know. They'd let us know. The Russians would not be silent about it. They would make overtures that they'd done it on purpose, because he of all things that he was, and I was no fan,
Right.
but he was a supporter of Ukraine, and you know, uh, back in the days when he was McCain's, kind of pilot fish. Uh, McCain was the supporter of Ukraine. It
Mm-hmm.
was John McCain. It was John McCain who was the supporter of Ukraine. I think Lindsay kind of just tagged along and then just kept going. And he was welcome here anytime he wanted to be here, and he would come and try and raise the profile of things and all the rest of it, which was welcome. But nobody here is really preoccupied with his passing.
Right.
There's a lot of other stuff that's happening here. The lack of the drone of the Patriots,
Mm-hmm.
leaving us without a defense against ballistic missiles has been a real big deal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we had today was National Statehood Day, and we had a lot of VIP guests in town,
Mm-hmm.
and nevertheless, we've had several air raid sirens today, which
Right.
is very rare during the day. So we'll see if there's any activity at night. I think it does depend on how many of these VIPs are overnighting, and then we'll take an early morning train back to the west. The Russians certainly don't want to kill any of these VIPs. I mean, we got
Mm-hmm.
like Ursula von der Leyen is here, and the head of the I think it's the Prime Minister of Serbia is here.
Right.
They don't want to. The Russians don't want to kill a VIP. So we'll see.
Not while they're there, anyways.
Yeah, well, yeah. And we've had warnings from the government, from Zelensky's administration, that it does seem like they're building up for another massive attack, which is kind of their modus operandi. They'll stockpile weapons for a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll have a massive attack, and then they'll go back to rebuilding a stockpile, and we'll have another massive attack. So I don't think tonight will be the night that they unleash whatever it is that they've been building up, but I certainly think maybe Friday or Saturday. I think that's a
Okay.
distinct possibility.
Mm-hmm. The one of the big side pieces of news that kind of where our worlds overlap is the there was to offset the gas revenue that they were losing from separating from Europe. The Russians were looking for this big pipeline to go into China. This whatever Spirit of Siberia 2 or whatever the fuck it was, that was supposed to be this big gas pipeline, and China would be their big new customer. And they'd gone over it several times, and this was gonna, they were almost spending the money already on military stuff. And China basically said no thank you officially this week. That in the meeting when Putin went there last time and he met with Xi, he was asked not to bring up the pipeline with Xi again by the people, like by Xi's people. Like, don't bring it up. It's not going to happen. So don't even, he'll get mad if you do, kind of level. And he didn't. And officially China said they're not going any further with it. That is in the middle of the incredible economic shock that is happening to Russia right now. On top of everything, on top of the Ukrainians hitting the refineries and all that kind of stuff, which is already putting a major dent in their one source of main revenue, and that's of course oil and oil products. And now they've lost this avenue of future wealth that they were counting on, and Gazprom's stock is now the lowest it's been in. It's fallen 11% since the beginning of this month, and it's lost almost 80% of its market cap. Since right before the war, and that's its function money. That's and Gazprom again. That's the one that Carter Page worked for and went over and gave little speeches about shit he never knew about because he was basically a courier. Is what I think everybody takes away from that. Opinion is that he wasn't actually there to do a job. He was just he was ferreting paper back and forth initially to probably Russian sympathetic or Republicans sympathetic to Russian, and then the entire Trump team.
Yeah, well, Gerhard Schroeder, former Chancellor of Germany, was on their board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
So they've used Gazprom in the past as a way of compromising people. Whether that was straight up, greed, that they just, they wanted to skim off the top of a very lucrative oil company, or whether or not by being inside Gazprom, you were compromised because you would be traveling to Russia repeatedly and they would get dirt on you and all the rest of it. So,
right. They'd film you in the Kremlin adjacent hotels, having your hookers pee on beds and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, Gazprom is an instrument of the state. So if you work with Gazprom, you are working with the Kremlin.
Yeah.
So
it's so weird to me with the maggot crowd, especially in the States, is that they believe that USAID is an arm of the CIA entirely and does is just this state front. And yet they can't believe that Gazprom and the FinSec sector of Russia isn't controlled by the Kremlin when they say so. Like, it's one thing to claim, you're drawing that inference, but it's in their defining documents. It's in, they have to acquiesce to the rules of the state.
And it's worth mentioning, and I don't want to divert our conversation, but, it's also worth noting that when Gazprom was building Nord Stream 2. That one of the things that they had a public affairs campaign, and not just public affairs, they had meetings with high-level dignitaries from the various Scandinavian, Baltic states that the pipeline would be going through. And one of their selling points was it will be the most monitored pipeline in the world, because of course both the Scandinavians and the Balts were like, hey man, we know how you guys operate, and if this pipe bursts, it's going to destroy, the Baltic Sea and
all our fishing industry and
our fishing industry,
coasts,
which is enormous, our coasts, all sorts of things. And the Russians, in the form of Gazprom, did this full course press of it will be the most monitored pipeline in the world, which is why now, after the destruction of Nord Stream 2 and all this kind of conspiracy of, it was Ukrainian divers, and I don't know if it was or not. And frankly, nobody else does. Seymour Hersh coming out with his big thing about how it was the CIA who did it.
Right. With members of the Coast Guard. To
which my response is, what happened to it being the most monitored pipeline in the world? And why has Gazprom not released any of the data that they have about any of it? They have not released anything substantive about the Nord Stream 2 destruction. Even though, again, as I stress, when they were building the thing, they said, we're going to make sure it's the most monitored thing in the world. Okay. All right. Well, if you're convinced that it was the United States or the Ukrainians or take your pick, show us your proof.
There's
show
footage.
us this highly monitored.
There's cameras and sensors every, 10 meters or something, supposedly on it.
Yeah.
And the the picture that we all saw that they floated for about a week, was it looking like it was exploded from the inside? Which again, ladies and gentlemen, I would send you to my favorite Pierce Brosnan Bond film, which is The World Is Not Enough, where they put a pig inside there, which is a pipe cleaning piece of gear. It's a robot that goes through and cleans out the pipe, and you just put a bomb on it and send it, and it will go to an exact position because of the very monitoring we're talking about and blow up. And nobody's going to look because the pieces are, all over the place, and it's your water where it happens, basically, or it's international waters and it's super deep, and why would anybody go down there and bother to check? It's dangerous and it's not their problem. So it's so goofy. And again, but people took it kind of, it's become part of the myth.
Yeah, the main point is Gazprom is bad news. Gazprom is the Russian state. The Russian state controls Gazprom. Pretty much all of the major industries are controlled ultimately by Vladimir Putin because he lives. It's a mafia state, so you don't. Nobody does. Whether that's telecoms or
nobody's doing the math
fuels,
and showing.
Nobody does anything in Russia without the power of the Kremlin behind it somewhere at some point. So look, all of this. It's just Russia is a as I say, it's a mafia state. So you lay down with dogs. You wake up with fleas.
Yeah. So one of the biggest areas of fighting, though, let's talk a little bit about what's happening at the sort of stagnant front line that the Russians are, for no lack of trying, but they are making zero progress. The Ukrainians stopped. I hear it. Look, I'll bring it up. Ukrainian forces repelled 200. Whoops! Oh, I have to put you in here. Beg your pardon. The Ukrainians have to put. Have repelled 253 clashes, in spite of the fact that they're throwing everything they possibly can at this, and it's going nowhere. The Russians, there's stagnant warfare, and then there's this, and again, it's a matter of just this meat wave nonsense against the drone warfare of the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians are doing such a good job using drone technology where they have a lack of people, or in the case of those their sea drones, a lack of a navy, where they took out the Moskva with basically a jet ski with bombs on it that was controlled. That the U.S. government is doing that now. You could see all the chest beating around the excuse me. The chest beating around the submarine repair shop that we hit in Iran using the similar technology, and they're like, "Look what we did." And you're like, "Yeah, the Ukrainians have been doing this because they've had to be able to do this for the last few years."
Yeah. Well, and now they're doing things like pulling their air defenses out of the Arctic and off the front lines because the Ukrainians are doing medium range and in-depth. They have their own cruise missile now. They have their own ballistic missile now. They have their own category of drones that are specifically meant to hit their supply lines. So the Russians are having to pull their air defenses away from again the front line or the Arctic. Well, I just heard that they pulled away from the Arctic as well, which, does leave them open to an attack from the North Sea, which would be the Brits. If they ever wanted to go kinetic with NATO, which is this big floating threat,
they always threat, right?
They like to send that balloon up whenever they're upset about anything. Well, if you pulled your air defenses from the North Sea and the Arctic. The Brits have Trident. They are nuclear capable. So it's the whole thing. It's just time and time again showing the Russians are losing, and they're losing badly. Now we're not having the greatest of times here in Ukraine. The lack of Patriot missiles is bad. It's very, very bad, and they're gonna keep pounding Kiev. they will keep sending ballistic missiles here. So it's not great
Hmm.
on the Ukrainian side either. And they do. You're right. They're pushing on the Pokrovsk front and that whole fortress city
Right.
line that they have. You know, and they're gonna want to try and break through and make a rush
Hmm.
on Kiev. I don't see that as a realistic possibility, but you know, it's the Russians,
Hmm.
and they have capacities that we should not, we shouldn't be
Hmm.
flippant about. Never
Right.
underestimate your enemy, but at the same time, uh, the Ukrainians are making better military gains when it comes to, again, their medium and their long term capability, but
Hmm.
also in the Ukrainians' ability to obstruct supporting the Crimean Peninsula. Crimea is all but shut off from the Russians, and Crimea cannot support itself.
Right.
It doesn't have any water. It's got you can't get gasoline in there unless you either bring it across the bridge or down through the land bridge that
Hmm.
connects directly to the Russian Federation. Um, all of which are compromised. So the whole reason ostensibly for the war, which is Crimea, is now it's just an albatross around their neck. So the Russians are not doing well. The Ukrainians
Hmm.
are not doing well, but sadly, we are also hearing from the powers that be here that this doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon,
Hmm.
which is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting, and even the former head of the armed forces here, General Zaluzhny, who's now over in London as the Ukrainian representative to the Court of St. James, recently came out within the last week and said, probably another 3 years of war at least,
Hmm.
which is just devastating news for Ukrainians. It's just everybody is so tired. Now, having said that, um, you know, anything could happen. And if
Hmm.
Putin suddenly gets a serious case of lead poisoning or falls out his basement window
Hmm.
and breaks his neck, or whether or not his buddy in the White House um, suddenly has a change of heart or uh,
Hmm.
has heart failure, whatever whatever it may be, that would change the course of this war as well. So
Right.
I'm ashamed to say that, but it is the truth. So
I do
um,
think there's a strategic reason for saying that, as well as just the reality on that he may be reflecting on, which is the idea that um, there might be a message going on in Russia that, yeah, it's rough and we're getting our ass handed to us, but we can outlast them. And that
yes,
number, when you're the attacking force that thought it would be over in 6 days, much less 6 months, much less 5 years later, and heading towards 6 years, weighs more on the Russian public. If the leaders in Ukraine are saying, prepare yourself for 3 more years of war, we're hunkering down, we're not giving up, and they're going to keep coming, and we're going to keep fighting, that has a possibility of demoralizing the other side as well. There's a value in
yeah,
going, we're in this, and so you could say that specifically for that reason. In the same way that Trump kind of does this, we can while pushing back on the forever war thing, going, we can be at war forever, which was ironic, stupid, and hilarious and sad at the same time. That's a similar thing. That's what he's doing. We have plenty of weapons. We have plenty of ammo. We can go for as long as you want to go. Whether it's true or not, there's a strategic bluff in it.
yeah, yeah, that could definitely be the case.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is not, that's not new,
Mm-hmm.
mutually exclusive. Both all of those things could be true.
Right.
They are there's so much money flooding into this country now, and money that's being allocated.
Whoops. Froze up
You
on
know-
my tick. Yeah, okay, here we go.
Oh,
Sorry, you
I'm
froze
back.
for a split
Yeah,
second. Yep.
I saw. Yeah. So look, the Ukrainians are. Ukraine is not going to collapse anytime soon. It's simply not going to happen. If the Russians are able to find some way to get some advantage on the so-called fortress cities that border Donbass, even then, they don't. The argument that the pro-Russia side says is that if they can get past those fortress cities, then it's just an open road to Kiev, and that's not true. That's not true at all. The Ukrainians will fall back to defensive positions that they've been building for a very, very long time. They will not be able to leave places like Kharkiv in the rear, because you'll have attack paths out of there as well, and they'll have built up their defenses, and you might be right. You might be spot on. There is that it is Zelensky may have been speaking to Moscow as much as he was to Kiev. Nevertheless, I know a lot of people here in Ukraine who are exhausted, myself included. And we want this war to end as soon as possible. Yep. So it's tough to hear talk like that from a guy who's as respected as Zelensky is. But the other topic worth discussing, and one we've talked about here many, many times, is that what the Russians have yet to grasp, and they, for one reason or the other, they can't swallow this bitter pill, is that Ukrainians are never going to stop fighting. The days when Moscow could recolonize Ukraine are long gone. There will be they will defend every inch of ground, and that's with a conventional war. And then we get to an occupation, and then we get to partisan warfare, and then we get to an insurgency, and then on and on and on it's going to go. And it's just they'll choke on it. The Russians will absolutely choke on trying to swallow Ukraine, and it's not going to happen. It'll be ugly, it'll be awful, but Moscow will never again hold dominion over Ukraine. It's just not going to happen anymore. I mean, we just had as our guest on last week's episode, which I highly recommend going and checking out, was the British military attaché to Ukraine during the beginning of the war, 2014. He was there, and then he left the British military, and ever since then he's been in the private sector. But if anybody knows contacts within Ukrainian defense and the Ministry of Defense, it's this guy. And he said, look, it is possible that if the Russians withdrew from Donbass and just left and then licked their wounds and circled back around to come to Kiev, we'd have a problem, or for that matter, to Odessa. But as long as they continue to try and fight to support Donbass, and in so doing support Crimea, that they're going to be bogged down there, and they can't do both. Or what they can't do a combination of the two. So there are three objectives that primary objectives that the Russians have. Regain control of Crimea so that you have a warm water port to base your Black Sea fleet in.
Which sounds a lot like the Strait of Hormuz issue. You had control of it before, and then you're trying to regain it now.
Take control of Kiev and install a friendly government like they have in Minsk in Belarus with Lukashenko. And that, I have no idea how that would ever happen. And then thirdly is also to take control of Odessa, because again, that's the Black Sea, and you can't control the Black Sea without controlling Odessa. So you have those three things to try and achieve if you're Putin and the Kremlin, and I think it's unlikely that they have a chance of getting any one of those three. If there is one to get, it would be Crimea. But I disagree with all due respect to our guests. They can't take Odessa, and they're never going to take Kiev. So the only thing they can hope to take is Crimea. And again, that's an albatross around their neck, because if you don't take Odessa, then Crimea is never safe. This entire expedition, this entire concept was so poorly thought out by Putin. And maybe it's because he had to do it because of demographics within Russia. In another 10 years, there won't be enough men of fighting age to engage in a war. So maybe he felt pressed, maybe he felt pressed to do it. Maybe he thought now was the time because he knew that Trump wasn't going to do anything. He thought NATO would fracture. He didn't anticipate the fact that Biden would tie together the alliance as tightly as he did. No matter whatever the complaints you might have had about Biden, he shored up NATO, and that was instrumental in destroying Putin's ambitions.
And Mark Rutte, has clearly learned the power of the Macron handshake, and has got Trump's number. All you got to do is do what Erdogan did and flatter him, and show him something slathered in gold that's got his name on it, and he thinks you're a friend. It's that stupid. It worked with North Korea, it worked with China, and NATO eventually was like, it's embarrassing. We shouldn't have to do this. People should do things for the right reasons. But if he's not going to, we've got the fucking combination to the lock. We should just use it. And that's what they've been doing.
Yeah. I have my criticisms of Rutte and his way of dealing with Trump. I understand it. I get your point. I think your point is valid. It's that all you have to do is just kind of kiss the ring and kind of do all that kind of stuff. And yet at the same time, Mark Rutte was a guy who previously had been very hawkish against Moscow. Rightfully so, saw the threat. And in kissing up to Trump is kind of betraying slightly some of his previous positions.
I agree, but I think it's
anti-Moscow. But it's complicated. It's
I would say that is more a verbal situation.
Has a very special place in the heart.
It sometimes attacks us out of nowhere. I apologize. We try to avoid by not. I actually said the word and then that triggered it. And I apologize. So, but the big point there is subscribe, not just to my channel, but to Phil's show. Phil has a show called On the Edge. It's they got a new episode every Sunday as best they can, considering he's in a war zone, and they're doing damn fine at doing that, considering the circumstance. So go to Philip Bittner's, just as it's spelled there.
I'm afraid. I think we're going to miss this week. I had something set up, and they canceled on me, and I just couldn't find a replacement. But the following week for sure. And I haven't given up. I think maybe This week we might just have to take a pass. And it's been, and frankly, it's been a rough couple of weeks with a lot of sleep deprivation and a lot of that stuff going on. And so I think we're probably going to miss this week.
Okay.
But next week we've got somebody for sure. Although again, I'm not giving up. If I can get somebody in the last minute, we'll put something out on
Great.
Sunday. But
at the very least, people can subscribe and
go
and
listen.
when
I tell you,
hit that notification bell for them.
Yeah, the last couple episodes have been really, really solid, and whether it was Lieutenant Colonel Grant or whether it was our mental health expert who was on the prior week, Lisa. There are lots of good episodes that we have in our back catalog to go check out. So even if we don't.
Right. And you're telling the story of the personal experience of what's going on there. It's not necessarily the breaking news. It's the experience of what it's like. So you can hear like what they're trying to do, what they're dealing with, what they're emotionally having to deal with, especially, and materially how how these attacks affect Ukrainians who live in the country and intend on keeping it that way.
Yeah, I see somebody's asking about one of my team who got mobilized. He sent me a photograph. Actually, just a couple of days ago, he was back in Kiev, and he was there with his infant son, who's I think probably only just a little over a year old. So I mean, they are still being mobilized. They're still being called up, and that is just the way it is, and it's not great. We had a controversy about 4 days ago when there was a incident in Lviv where some guys were being their status was being checked, and they were found to be they weren't properly registered for the mobilization, and so they were being taken in to be basically, fined and re-registered. And that sparked a big, I don't want to say fight or mob in Lviv, but there were a lot of people who were upset because there is a lot of resentment about the mobilization. It's not easy, but it is something that most Ukrainians have come to terms with. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants it.
Right. But we're not at Vietnam levels where, that kind of disdain for it. They understand it. It's just, I have, by the way, so we had our refrigerator busted. And so we needed to get a repairman. And our repairman was a Ukrainian man who was living here with 3 small children and was sending a portion of his salary back to Ukraine to help. And that was sort of his way of giving to it without him being conscripted and transferred to the a fighting stance, because he's got brand new babies. They tend to do that. If the war continues on, kind of like how Vietnam was, once your kids get out of what would be called the tender years or whatever, there's a specific phrase for that, then they can call you up. But while you're still in that, you don't go. If you're one of the family caretakers. And his parents, though, are in Kiev. His elderly parents are in Kiev. And so we talked about it a bunch. And it was a nice sit down. For his own safety, it's not like I would bring him on and ask him questions about stuff, because I don't, in a heavily tourist area like Las Vegas, I don't necessarily trust that they wouldn't go on a sweep like the Chinese military does with Chinese college students. But this is just a reality that he's aware of, and that's happening amongst all the Ukrainians, and it's just not unlike what was happening during the U.S. war. It's sort of like a cross between World War II and Vietnam, depending on how you feel about it, where your position is on it, whether you think it's winnable or how long it's going to go on and all that stuff. And I'm sure there's a back and forth about that. And there's got to be still some sympathizers, like Yanukovych sympathizers, that are still in the country who still feel more of an affinity towards Russia or think they're going to win, so want to be on the winning side. You know,
Yeah.
that Marjorie Taylor
Yeah.
Greene their way through this.
Sure. Yeah. And there are genuine fellow travelers who, I mean, but look at the, Irish Civil War. I mean, there were those who, or our own revolution. We had loyalists to the crown. Colonization is a really insidious thing, and it can get into people's heads and screw with it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are Ukrainians who are pro Moscow, but it is not a large number. The vast majority of the people here would like to have their independence.
So this is they put out this document every day that shows the casualties that the Russians are experiencing on the front lines and elsewhere. They are at 1.38 million casualties. At least 60% of that is dead, if not all, because Russia tends to lie about the wounded and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, they really do, and they kind of brag about it, which is so odd. But I mean, it's 1,300 every single night. So do the math. Like, this is every week. That's the American losses in Afghanistan. Every week and a half, that's the American losses in Afghanistan, or the Russian losses in Afghanistan over a decade, 10 years. And one of the other, they're knocking out. There's a lot of, obviously, the UAVs that are getting knocked out, by other UAVs, and there's the back and forth in there. But one thing that was always in there was the armored combat vehicles and the automotive and fuel tanks, which are often accompanied by several people dying attached to it. The guys who are in those trucks and running those trucks and all that kind of stuff, they go when those things get hit. So it almost gets separated. But one of the other things you see here is the ground robotic complex, 6936. 8 more of those. And that can be a series of things where the Russians are trying to respond to what the Ukrainians are doing and sort of failing miserably, and never really getting to the launch part with a lot of their... I mean, they definitely got long-range drones, but their short-range drone never gets off the ground. It doesn't. They don't have, the octocopters and the quadcopters chasing down personnel at all. I mean, I've watched an unfortunate amount of Ukrainian and Russian Telegram channels that show people getting killed in horrible ways. And one of the things you see a total lack of on the Russian ones, they'll show you places getting blown up, and they'll show you people getting shot, Ukrainians getting mowed down, or them killing prisoners, which they're very proud of also. But what you don't see is a lot of their drone POV stuff. That's the short range stuff. You'll see Shaheds, which are aimed at buildings, but you will not see this kind of, follow quadcopter, octocopter technology at all on the Russian side in any measurable amount. Certainly not enough to make a dent in the warfighting. They're just sending dudes, and a lot of them are being sent as drone bait. The lesser guys and anybody who's trouble or can't fight, or the Nigerians they trick into fighting, or the North Koreans they bring out there. I mean, these guys are all but given an empty gun or a piece of plywood carved to look like an AK-47 and told, run across the field, your gun's in the trench, pick it up when you get there. We just don't want people to fire on you because they think you're not armed. And then these guys are just being hit with drones out in the middle of these open fields. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
But I guess it couldn't happen to a group of nicer people.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also recently the massive attack that happened in the Sea of Azov, where they hit 23 oil tankers that were bottled up in there with their drones. I mean, that was in a matter of minutes, very coordinated from all four corners of the here it is. Yeah, all four corners of the compass. The Ukrainians sent in these drones to blow the hell out of a bunch of oil tankers, and
17 oil tankers, 2 gas tankers, and a tugboat. And the interesting thing is this almost feeds off like they're getting an okay from what Trump is doing in the Strait of Hormuz. They're going, oh, okay, well that's on the table now. Okay, let's do that. And again, they're hitting them. I don't know whether they're tracking the casualty part of it. But by and large, they're largely disabling these bigger boats. They're not necessarily sinking. They're just dead in the water.
No.
Which ironically, there's a ton of Russian ships dead in the water, and I have my own theory about this, full of oil parked all over the place because they got nowhere to sell it. Because the sanctions just came back on, and the Senate is eyeing even more sanctions, and other countries just want to get ahead of that, so they've stopped ordering them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going well for the Russians. And one of the other things about it is that Trump came into office thinking that he could apply leverage to Zelensky and make him do what he wanted him to do.
Right.
But in reality, what's happened is that by withdrawing support for Ukraine, the Ukrainians are like, well, then what leverage do you have over us anymore? We're going to hit anything we want to hit now.
Right.
If you're not going to help us, if you give us stuff and say,
go easy,
don't hit that.
Right.
Yeah. Don't hit that refinery. Don't hit those, gas stations or whatever it is. The Ukrainians might go, okay, in exchange for a whole bunch of patriots so that we can defend our cities, we will acquiesce to your conditions. But because in his utter idiocy, Trump has said, we're not going to help you, then the Ukrainians are like, well, then why should we follow any instruction at all from you? We're going to do what we're going to do.
Yeah, the ironic de-escalation that happens by giving them the ability to defend themselves. Because when you run out of patriots, offense is your only defense. And if anybody in the Pentagon, that Trump has put in there could think past the end of their nose, they would know this. This has been gamed out. This isn't new. This is like baseline art of war shit that any of them learn in officer training. Like you'd have to go through some of this stuff, but they're just blowing it off. Like we don't have to. We can bluff our way through.
Yeah, yeah.
So stupid.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
and that's no way to run a government. That's no way to run a government. That's no way to run a military.
It's no way to run a company. Right.
Fake it till you make it. I mean, it's just insane that we have a guy like Pete Hegseth at the head of our armed forces. It's just. A guy who literally embodies the idea of fake it until you make it.
Right. Well, and also you've got, in all honesty, he's just piggybacking on Dan Kane's decisions in between Trump. So he's not making any of these decisions at all. He really isn't.
No.
He's the first Secretary of Defense / War, whatever, that we've ever had that isn't the strategic hinge point. Who's like, Mr. President, I advise this. And you chose me for this role for this very reason, which every major Secretary of Defense who's been in that position where we've been at war has said to the president at some point. And if they're deferring, if it's a jump ball or a coin toss, they defer to the Secretary of Defense because he's coordinating both sides, the goals of the White House and the country itself and the citizenry and the military objectives that are possible and on the table and all that shit. That's what their job is. Hegseth is just like a dude with two fucking phones, just holding the phones together upside down and just like hoping it works out between Trump and Kane. It's fucking embarrassing. And then how do you think CSL says he's the Department of War spokesmodel. It's exactly, that's Trump's central casting bullshit. How do you think the strikes inside Russia and the refineries and the smoke on the horizon is affecting the Russian decision, and how do Ukrainians feel about finally striking sites inside the country?
Well, I mean, the Ukrainians love it, but
Right.
the Russians, I mean, again, the contract that was made between the Russian people
Mm-hmm.
and Vladimir Putin was stop the chaos of the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
of the post collapse Soviet Union, Yeltsin years, all that. And Putin said, I will come in, you turn a blind eye to my corruption and all the rest of it, and I will make sure that you don't have chaos. Well,
Right.
you've got smoke plumes over St. Petersburg and Moscow. So,
Mm-hmm.
he's broken that contract, and I don't know how long um, that can continue because in addition to the obvious chaos that he has wrought on those cities,
Mm-hmm.
which is really where all decisions are made in Russia, is Petersburg and Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have now, these enormous lines and the rationing of gasoline that's going on. And it's another example to the Russian people that all is not going well. And again, Putin made a promise to these people. He said, put me in power, ignore all the terrible things that everybody knows I'm doing, and in
Mm-hmm.
return, I'll give you stability. Well,
Right.
that doesn't look like stability to me, and neither does having to wait, 6 hours in a line for a gas station in July
Right.
of 2026. What happens in January?
Mm-hmm.
What happens in
When it's not cars,
February?
it's fuel oil.
And
Right.
and it's minus 20.
Mm-hmm.
And are you going? You can't sit in a line for 6 hours because you'll get hypothermia. This is not going well for Russia. It is
Mm-hmm.
just, it's not. And a lot of people have made this point about how, like, well, Trump likes to be on the side of a winner, so maybe now that the Ukrainians are showing that they're winning, he'll flip sides
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
he'll start supporting Ukraine. I mean, I'd love to see it happen. I'm not going to hold my breath because I think that Trump is compromised by by Putin. I think Putin's got something on him.
Right.
Aside from the fact that they kind of think with the same worldview.
Mm-hmm.
But Putin's in trouble, man. He is in real trouble, and it's not going well on the battlefield. It's not going well domestically. It's not going well economically. We have the central bank, the head of the central bank is scarcely seen in public these days in Russia because
He's dead? No, sorry.
no,
Because he got pushed out a window? Sorry, yeah.
well, because the economy. I mean,
Yeah.
they're going into. They're gonna have an economic crisis. Well, they already do have an economic crisis, but they're gonna have an economic crisis that they
Mm-hmm.
can't ignore. That won't be anything like what happened in the 90s when I lived in Moscow in 1998 when the ruble was devalued, and I remember the run on the banks and the panic that caused.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to look like nothing. At some point, Russia's economy is really going to collapse, and they're openly talking about it now. And you don't openly talk about this on Solovyev or Margaret Semyon going on Russian television and saying we're about to run off a cliff. That would have been unthinkable, 2-3 years ago. So the fact that they're even saying it publicly now and they're warning their people that, hey, we're about to really be in economic dire straits tells you that it's real. And I think I don't think. I mean, I joked earlier in the show that he's going to Putin's going to get a severe case of lead poisoning. I'm not joking. I think they might, not to use a poor euphemism, but they might pull the trigger on him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has
or the plug,
screwed
as
up,
it were. Yeah.
Yeah, he has screwed up his country so badly. that you wonder when the bow will break.
This is so. I want to show everybody. This is Russian oil refining by year from 2020 till now. The green line is 2026. This is the year when Ukraine started hitting the refineries. That, I mean, and it, it obviously fluctuates over the course of the year. You can see from these, you can see their regular spikes, and they would arc up at the end of the year. Those kind of things. That's not this. This is entirely different. And again, this is gas that isn't on the market, which means the price of it worldwide goes up. And if the price of it worldwide goes up, it goes up here, which is why it's oil by the barrel is like $85, $86 a barrel today, when it was approaching under 70 just last week. It can happen that fast. And a lot of it's also futures and that kind of stuff, because they expect this to go on and be even worse. But we're getting near the level of demand destruction needed for like all the European countries, the majority, if not all, of China, and a good portion of Asia and the Middle East, moving on to electric commuter cars entirely just to offset the need, because being reliant on this shit and the volatility of the areas it comes from, and the occasional situation where you have a Maduro or a Trump or a Putin or a Saudi minister or an Ayatollah in Iran in control of enough of the supply that they could fuck with the world getting on with life at a whim, there's just no future in that. And I think Europe has learned that about the Russians especially, which is why, the Nord Stream 2 never got off the ground. By the time it was blown up, the Germans had already said, we're not going to use it. We're going to find other stuff. And they were dragging ass to that point. We were, getting them to that point where they're like not going to take any Russian gas anymore, was a huge tooth pull. They were getting it from Norway and Qatar and then us. And now they're getting it majority, I guess, from Norway. But the idea is that you just got to start moving away from all this stuff. I'm going to call it right now that one of the biggest things you're going to see amongst European countries and the US and Canada and all these countries is what I would call grid sovereignty. That your electric grid, which is going to drive all your technology and the vast majority of your commuter cars, is going to be your key focus. Not, we need oil to power our cars and we get it from somebody else. It's grid sovereignty. Where do you plug your shit into and get energy from? And the more you can isolate it to just your borders, the safer you are. It's a national security thing. It's an environmental thing. And that's the way stuff is headed. And if anything has, sped that up, besides the active, push by climate activists in Europe and other places to better their environment and people here, specifically the thing that's done it is the demand destruction caused by, having to be tied to Russia's well-being and allowing us, funding their war. And the same reason I'm not on Twitter is because if you're on there, you're helping pay for Sean Puff Daddy Combs' legal defense, because he's one of the investors and that's where he gets money from. And if there is any, that's another thing entirely. But that I think we're you complain about Iran funding terrorism. What are they doing it with? They're doing it with their oil revenues. Well, why is their oil revenues the same reason there's demand for drugs in the United States? You quell the demand, you stop the killing. As long as the demand. Yep, and the same thing with Russia.
Same thing here. Yeah.
So, anyways, we're at the bottom of the hour, and I want to tell you, Philip, thank you for being on, brother. It's good to see you. I'm sorry we couldn't talk Saturday because we were in Chicago. We're going to work out a system where that is, but they're a little 90s in their setup there in the studio.
Fair enough.
So I'm gonna have to bring another piped in source somehow, that like my own little fill in a box. that I bring and plug in when we're there, so we can source audio in and out fairly quickly when we roll into the studio. I think I have a workaround if they'll let me do it, but we'll see. In the meantime, though, thank you, brother, and stay safe, and take notes from your mental health lady and take care of yourself, will you?
Yeah, will do.
And
right, good
we all
talking
look
to you.
forward. Yeah, we all look forward to your retirement and comfort, and you being Michigan's Grand Marshal of their Peace Parade or their Santa for years to come. All right.
All
Awesome.
right,
Thanks,
take
brother.
care. Oh, we'll talk
All
on
right.
Saturday.
Okay, yeah, get some
See ya.
rest. Thanks, Phil. There he is. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that like, share the show. It's Housemarks Mega Worldwide. And we regularly talk to Phil. You're welcome. We regularly talk to Phil on Wednesdays and Saturdays. He's the second hour of the radio show and the second hour of the Wednesday show, because to keep up we're not going to forget what's going on there in the midst of all this. He's been with us since nearly the beginning of the Ukraine war, and he's been providing us with information on the ground, like personal relationship and political stuff inside the country for a few years now, which is, I'm so honored to have him on the regular, and I'm committed to making sure that message gets out on the regular and keeping people up to date on it. So I appreciate you guys joining us for that. Hit the like, share the show. I think we're still, if I'm right, splitting these 2 hours into separate little podcasty things. There you go. How you can have a little AI graphic of Phil in a box. I do have to make that, like, just it's all beard, like he's just squunched. Well, thank you so much, 250K Ohm. I'm trying to introduce new information to everybody's worldview. Shall we jump in? I want to see have they stopped I'm going to reload this to see if have they taken a break on the deconfirmation of Todd Blanche, the Epstein enabler. Yeah. So they finished up, I guess.
And then lie about what I did.
So you had nothing to do with the decision to prohibit the release of the report. You had nothing to do with the department's
wasn't in court.
position.
I
No, I'm
wasn't
not
the
asking whether you were in court. I'm asking you whether anyone sought your opinion or used your guidance in refusing to release Volume 2.
When
You're
that
saying you had nothing to do with
when
that decision?
litigation was ongoing, I was a private citizen, still representing the President of the United States. It was before March. Since
So he was a private lawyer for one of the potential co-conspirators. It's another way of putting it.
March, to the extent there's been anything in front of that
And
judge,
Mr.
I haven't
Blanche,
been part of
I
it.
asked you in your last confirmation hearing whether you would release the report, and your answer was no. Your answer was not, I will recuse myself. Your answer was, no, I will not release the report. That was your testimony last before this committee. You subsequently were advised by ethics lawyers not to be involved in these matters, but it appears you were involved in these matters. Let me ask you about another matter.
I wasn't involved. You can't
let
say
me-
it
let me-
appears I was
okay,
involved
all right,
when I
well,
said I wasn't.
Let me ask you about another one you have your name on.
Jeez, the truth has to matter at some
Yeah,
point.
it does matter. We just don't hear much of it from you. But let me ask you about another matter you have your name on. I don't think you can deny responsibility here, and that is the IRS settlement agreement. So
Yes.
you put your name on this. That
Everybody gets to use the same prop, which is good.
absolves the president of tax liabilities in the past. The president was convicted in the case you represented him in
Yeah, it's getting another bite at the apple.
of falsifying business records in part for tax purposes. Does this settlement not absolve the president of any liability for tax crimes associated with what he's already been convicted of?
That's not what he was convicted of. It not having to do with
Well,
for tax
I'm happy to
purposes.
read the statement of facts. The participants took steps that mischaracterized for tax purposes the true nature of the payments made in furtherance of the scheme. So you know,
The
Mr.
participant
Blanche,
there was not
you-
the
you-
president. It
you-
was somebody else.
Well, if the president
It wasn't the president. Yes, it was the ruling of the court.
is conspiring with others to falsify business records to help them cheat on taxes, he is also exposed to liability. You know that as well as I do.
He can't be audited for that.
And of course he can be. Of course he can be. And he can be prosecuted for it. But the agreement you signed on behalf of your former client, on behalf of your current client, in a staggering example of self.
Also, can I, real quick, this is for the maggots out there, because there'll be plenty of clips and back and forth. We'll look at some of this afternoon, the afternoon show. Don't forget, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up if you like it. Give a thumbs down if you hate it. If you're a maggot in there and you're just, obviously I understand why you're in my chat room, because you can't go over to some sort of like maggot-friendly chat room like Bongholio or whatever and go, yay, the Epstein files are out. Yay, gas prices. Yay, inflation is down. Yay, home prices are great. Yay, Trump proudly signed the housing bill. Right? I know it's not like, that can't be a lot of fun. You go over to your chat room that's sympathetic, allegedly, to what you want, and you can't exactly go over there and beat your chest. What the fuck are you going to do? So you got to come over and I don't know, rile up shit or whatever. It doesn't work over here. I mean, I'm sure it works in other, chat rooms on my side of the aisle, but not this one. But good luck. And feel free to give a thumbs down, because the algorithm does not give a shit whether you like me or not. It just knows, hey, this guy's engaging. So, but do any of you realize, does it ever occur to any of the maggots out there that signing a document and creating a fund under the DOJ that doesn't allow for the president to be prosecuted for crimes before he was president and after he's president, if it actually worked, if that scheme worked, that would be true of everybody. Not only would it be true of Barack Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, have you heard of him? Or Joe Biden, but anybody that they ordered to do something, anybody that they gave, permission to do something, would also have a legal basis to claim that they are covered by that immunity. And they'd win if this shit worked. You don't want this shit in a democracy. You don't want presidents to have this amount of power, dum-dum. And I understand. They don't want the president to have it. They want Trump to have it because they're monarchists and they want him to take over and all that kind of shit. And they think the sun shines out of his ass and he's sent by the Lord and protected by the Lord and all that nonsense, which the dude couldn't quote Jesus wept with a teleprompter. So fuck off with this idea that he's a Christian. But on top of that, any rule that applies to him as president, which is how they draft these things, would apply to every president, past and future. And I got news for you. You're not going to be able to guarantee the next Republican, choice is one you'll like, or that there will never be another Democratic president. So that person could do all kinds of fucked up stuff and get away with it because they thought it was for national security, but you can't ask them because it's none of your business. And you would codify the shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and nobody would do anything about it into law. And why wouldn't that apply? And this is a terrible scenario. I'm talking about the ad infinitum, ad absurdum version of what happens here with a legal precedent like this. That if the president of the United States 8 years from now ordered a hit on a former American president, one that you might even like, they could not be prosecuted for it if they thought it was for in the national interest. And you couldn't even ask them their motivation according to the SCOTUS ruling that gave Trump, this kind of tacit immunity that he got. You wouldn't even be able to look into the motivation for doing it or the deliberation about it. And you certainly wouldn't be able to throw anybody in jail who got a legitimate order from the president of the United States based on whatever the fuck he calls national security. It's insane. It's amazing that modern Republicans are clamoring for extraordinary federal power. Well beyond, we've blown past bullshitting about states' rights. They want king-like powers for Trump. They complain about them when they think people like Obama have them. They happen to think that the ACA was shoved down their throats, even though every big bill, it had to be compromised to get certain votes. It went through committee multiple times. It was brought for a floor vote, and then they tried to undo it, and things were changed in it because that's how fucking legislation works. But if you ask them, they were, it was forced on them sexually. That's how they talk about it. And so they instead of being against that kind of thing, which they were bitching about at the time, they want Trump to have that same kind of power, as if it wouldn't apply to anybody after. And in the, again, ad infinitum, what's protected under that law is fucking dark. You do not want the president of the United States to have that kind of immunity. I don't. Even if I voted for that person, I would want checks and balances, both in the SCOTUS and in the House and Senate. And it might slow progress and it might make shit drag. And I may not get all I want, but it sure limits the possibility that we end up with a Hitler or a King George happening. I honestly don't get this maggot fervor for monarchical powers for the president of the United States. Unless you're just, it's fine if you believe that, but stop bullshitting that you're for fucking freedom. Why would you, what kind of gun rights do they have in Turkey or in Russia or in Saudi Arabia? Certainly China or North Korea. These other places Trump thinks are awesome. And these leaders are so powerful. Yeah, the small government conservative is gone. You guys have fucking thrown the whole budget thing out the window. This is just, he deserves to get paid for putting up with, the American plebes. That's it. There's no other reasoning behind it. It's and again, I agree there's a thing called Trump derangement syndrome. You'd have to be fucking deranged to vote for this guy. Epstein's fucking wingman, the only man who ever said in a news article that Epstein was fun to be with and likes ladies a little bit on the younger side, and flew on, not only on his plane, but Epstein flew on Trump's plane with an underage girl. We still don't know her fucking name. Maximum Golf article. Check it out. Trump had a guy following him around. Dude was like, I don't know who this is. I thought it was the Epstein and Maxwell's niece. It wasn't. And by the way, in the article, Trump is pacing around going, come on, Jeffrey, don't be late for somebody else's plane. Which means Trump always shows up early for a flight on Epstein's plane. And that isn't the first time that Epstein has flown on his fucking plane. So, and again, if he was so concerned about the border and the people coming across, why did he kill the border bill, that the bipartisan one that, was on the table under Biden? Why did he tell every Republican, threaten them if they voted for it? If it was an emergency, if there were people murderers coming across the border. If that was true, isn't he responsible for every murderer that came across the border after that point, when it would have stopped them? And the stuff in the big bullshit bill is basically that bill later. Remember when he said, we don't need a new bill, we just need a new president? Apparently he did, because all of that text, by and large, and some extra funding, was in the big BS bill under the radar. I honestly don't fucking get it. I do not get it. You guys want somebody Christian? The dude can't even quote scripture. He doesn't know John 3:16 from John 7:57. We're reading from the book of Hines, 57. Any of it. He doesn't go to church. He doesn't think he has to ask forgiveness of Christ to be a Christian. He thinks it's silly. He's a Darwinian eugenicist. He doesn't believe in the inherent value of all human life. You think he's against abortion? He's paid for multiple abortions over the course of his life. And he'd do it again if he thought he could get away with it, or it was necessary. It's absurd. I don't know. You guys have been bullshitted so heavily into thinking they're going to trans all our kids. And they want us all to have windmills in our yards or some bizarre shit. Or they want murderers and rapists and blah. Why did Obama deport more criminal aliens than Trump did? With allegedly fewer of them in the fucking country. Why? Why are Obama's numbers higher than Trump's? Mass deportations and all that shit. Why? And Obama prioritized the worst of the worst. We didn't have any people getting run over or shot in the street, though. It wasn't necessary. Obama had better deportation numbers. Why can't, if there are 25 to 35 million new aliens in the country, and they're illegal and they're dangerous and they all came out of mental institutions and they're all rapists and murderers, all of them, 25 million, just stampeded into the fucking place. Why can't he find them? Sorry, they melded into all these communities so well that even the locals don't notice their next door neighbor is Hannibal Lecter? What the fuck are you talking about? The reason there aren't mass deportations is because there's not masses to deport. You were lied to. The number of undocumented immigrants is relatively static at about 11 million. And most of them have fucking jobs. And their kids grow up and have jobs. And you know it. You know how I know you know it? Because when Trump said he was going to give a pass to people in the hospitality industry and people on farms to just go on the honor system for the undocumented immigrants they were hiring and paying under the table, you didn't bat a fucking eye. None of you were like, wait a fucking second. You're just going to give them, you're just going to let farmers hire undocumented workers and then have a trust me bro, and they can live in the community and stay there, whatever, as long as they work on a farm. And if they do something awful, the farmer is responsible in some way, but that never turns out to be the case. By the way, I noticed he said that being responsible part about the farm workers and the farm owners specifically, but he didn't say that about the hotel and golf course owners. That was weird. That was odd. And again, this isn't my standard. This is allegedly your standard. This is what you supposedly believe. If you believe in a Christian nation, then start voting for fucking real Christians. I mean real ones. As you do unto the lesser of these, you do unto me. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Love your neighbor as yourself. Blessed are the meek. That part seems to just fly out the fucking window as long as somebody's wearing their cross like it's a goddamn gang symbol. It's not. It's a statement of ethic that requires work. It's the same thing as like Trump being anywhere near a Bible or a cross is like somebody who wasn't in the military wearing a Medal of Valor. It's stolen valor. Because it takes work to be a Christian. It takes work to care. It takes work to put up with the very things that would make you hate your neighbor and your enemy. That's what makes it fucking special. That's what makes it good and important and extraordinary. But when you sell it down the fucking river to a scumbag like Donald Trump because you don't even have faith in the ideas itself, you have to outlaw a woman's right to choose because you don't think you have a convincing argument. And that's just for starters. Again, I have no problem with the fact that Trump is probably a real billionaire for the first time in his life because he grifted and stole at least $2.5 billion from maggots who bought his stock and his meme coins. I give a shit. Good. I guess that's money that isn't going to elect Republican candidates unless you don't believe the content of your wallet is a zero-sum game. I am a satinist. Somebody said I sound like a satinist. Well, the flag behind me looks like it's made of satin, so I think maybe that's what they're talking about. But if your standard doesn't require any work, is it a standard at all? If you have to trust the plan or trust God's plan, like you're on a fucking roller coaster and you're not sure if they built the rest of it before you didn't take a look at it before you got on the goddamn thing, maybe your standards are too fucking low. Or maybe you're just not a Christian yourself. You just like the badge that it gives you, the free pass to do skeevy shit or something. Admit it. It's a free country. Be Ayn Randian. If that's your thing, but don't ever, if you've got a Bible and a copy of Atlas Shrugged on the same shelf in your house, and it's not for reference, you think they belong there next to each other? It's stunning. It's just so odd. And all the fucking pearl clutching about the Epstein files, like, why haven't they been released? You're kidding, right? Trump has only had two best friends. Both of them replaced somebody who died in his life. Roy Cohn replaced his dad, and Jeffrey Epstein replaced his brother. And both of them are dead pedophiles. Trump was openly close, mentored by Roy Cohn. And what did Roy Cohn say on his deathbed in an interview, ladies and gentlemen? Say it with me now. When asked about what will people think, how would you feel about people saying that Roy Cohn was a gay man who died of AIDS? Because that's what he died of AIDS. And Roy Cohn said, speaking of himself in the third person, where have you heard this before? Roy Cohn said, Roy Cohn is not a gay man. Roy Cohn is a straight man who fucks boys. That's Trump's mentor. Now does his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein look a little more normal? Like there's a pattern? Yeah. Anyways, other than that, I have no opinion. Hit the like, share the show. Again, if you disagree, if you think being friends with Jeffrey Epstein for a quarter century doesn't make you either a co-conspirator or a horrible judge of character, where you should not be picking the leaders of cabinets, for example, please give a thumbs down if you agree that Trump has great judgment and that's why he was friends with Epstein for 25 years. And wishes Ghislaine Maxwell well. Well, by the way, Todd Blanche is helping her get cushier quarters to keep her fucking mouth shut. Give a thumbs down if you like where grocery prices are right now. I don't mean where they're gonna be, where he said they were gonna be last year. For real, go ahead. If you invested in TMTG and you love the fact that it went from $90 to $9 and it's worth, 10 cents on the dollar. If you think affordability is a scam, give a thumbs down. Yeah. We had ICE agents during Biden. We had ICE agents during Obama. We didn't have any of this shit. So maybe voting for a president matters. Maybe the adult choice is required of people who actually care. Jesus. All right, love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. I gotta go. I got show prep for this afternoon. Man. But I noticed that I didn't get too many thumbs down when I was saying that. I don't know if that's, maybe I struck a chord. I think so. Thank you, Candy. The super chat. And thank you, Sugar for Tea. Thank you so much.
Wait, right, bow, pull tight, crown like cold, winter light, scroll in hand, seven seals, every word cuts and heals. Red horse screams, hooves like drums, sword raised high, kingdoms come, peace unstitched by a single roar. I hear thunder at my door, wars and rumors of wars, spoken like a curse in the dark. Every headline, every scar is another cracked heart in the ark. Wars and rumors of wars. Hey, echo from the prophets and seers. When the Lamb breaks the seal, all the old world shakes with our fears. Black horse ways, bread and bone, steel stilled hard, iron stone. Measure grain by a dying sun, silver short for everyone.